people or groups of people who have encounters with God. And for each one, it was transforming in their lives when they found him, when they realized what God was calling them to. In our first reading from Isaiah, we hear how Isaiah has this vision, and it's glorious. It is with seraphim and all kinds of angels and cherubim and the Lord. There's incredible glory in this particular verse from the scriptures. We hear about how Isaiah sees things that are beyond the human imagination, and he doesn't think he's worthy to be able to enjoy, appreciate, and to embrace it. He sees his weaknesses. He doesn't think he's able to approach this incredible vision, even though God is inviting. Our God is always inviting to us, and there is a desire for us to be with God. Now, my friends, we don't always have a desire to leave the earth or to change our ways in order to go to God, but deep in every human heart, there is an innate desire to be one with the Almighty. Isaiah says, well, I'm not good enough. I have issues. I'm a sinner. And so one of the seraphim come and they bring Isaiah a burning ember in order that he may be purified. It's wonderful how fire has that quality. It's something we should have a healthy respect for. But fire cleanses and purifies. And so that offering that was made to Isaiah was part of that invitation to say, I will take you in your weakness. I will take you with all of your stuff, your issues, your drama, and I will give you mercy. And I will give you a chance that you can feel in full transparency to come before the Lord and receive grace. And what happened with Isaiah? He ended up being called to be one of the most prolific, if not the most prolific writer of the Hebrew Scriptures. 3 particular books there, over 60 chapters dedicated to Isaiah. And he led a life of faithfulness. He led a life of love. And his encounter with God was pretty extraordinary. Again, outside of what we would see with the human eye, Isaiah saw with the heart. In the second reading, we hear from St. Paul. And St. Paul speaks also of encountering God, specifically in a post-resurrected state of Christ. That after the resurrection, Jesus went first to the women and to Peter, to the others, to all of the apostles, and then to hundreds of people. And so he went and he appeared because Jesus wanted to tell them that there was good news, that he was not dead, but that something incredibly dramatic had happened. He rose from the dead, and he invites them to encounter him. Not just as one who was like them walking around Galilee and Nazareth and Jerusalem as a human person performing miracles and giving wonderful words of encouragement and preaching, but rather now to say, come with me and know that there's something more to this life than just what is here on this earth. For St. Paul, his encounter was dramatic. It happened as he was on his horse and he gets thrown from the horse, gets blinded. He ends up having a vision there. He sees Christ himself, and his encounter changes his life forever, going from one of the great persecutor of the Christians to being one of the Christians. He was transformed. And an encounter with God is transforming. So for Isaiah, it was very extraordinary. For Paul, it was dramatic. And then we have our gospel reading. We have the apostles, Peter, James, and John, and they were still fishermen. And there they are out on the lake. And you know what? It wasn't a very good day fishing. And they couldn't find the best place where they were biting. So they're discouraged and they're frustrated. Maybe we can relate to this because we also can be frustrated. We also can be discouraged at times. But they encounter Jesus, not in the extraordinary, not in the dramatic, but in something ordinary. He's walking on the shore. He gets into the boat with them. He says, I'm going to go out fishing with you. And boy, what a fishing story they have to tell. Because both of the boats end up getting filled with fish. Now, these were not little John boats. These were boats in Jesus' time that were about 27 and a half feet long, about 7 feet wide, and 4 feet deep. They were good-sized boats, so for them to be filled to the brim with fish, that was a lot of fish, to the point where they were about to sink. And the Lord encounters them in this ordinary place, going about their ordinary business of fishing. Their lives also are changed forever. There is incredible conversion because he invites them, come follow me. I will make you fishers of men. I will send you out to all the nations to be able to go to places you have never even dreamed of. And what is awaiting you is incredible because you are going to see and do things you never thought possible. Their encounter is one where they may not have been seeking Christ. In their hearts, they were waiting for a Messiah. They had no idea what falling in love with God more would be. But certainly they found him. And as those apostles, they ended up having this incredible journey that allowed them to feel great achievement in their lives. My friends, as we hear these readings today, it is a chance to ask, how do we encounter God? Where do we encounter God? It doesn't always happen, those encounters, in the extraordinary or the ordinary or the dramatic. But I can tell you that God is seeking you. God is looking for each one of us. He wants to find us. He wants to get into our souls. He wants to be a part of our lives, to touch our hearts in ways we never thought possible. To seek God is a great adventure. Are you seeking him? To fall in love with God is the greatest romance. Now, we use that word love. It just gets thrown around so often. You know, I love the cold. I love M&Ms. Well, that's a whole lot different than loving God. When we truly love someone, it means that we give ourselves to them in a selfless manner. It's a good reminder for husbands and wives, or those called to marriage, those called to the priesthood as well, to be able to realize that falling in love is something where we leave ourselves behind. And when we encounter God, for each one of us in the single life as well, to realize he gets a hold of us and we live our lives every day for him. We can encounter God perhaps in the everyday, when we wake up in the morning or at night and you look out at the sky. Last night there was a beautiful sunset. The sky was painted in a way that only God can paint the sky. Do we take that moment to stop and realize who made that sunset? That's an encounter with God. Can we encounter him perhaps in the conversation with a dear friend, where we realize the incredible gift of community and togetherness? Do we encounter God when we see the joy of an innocent child laughing? And we realize that there's so much seriousness in life, but sometimes we take ourselves a little too seriously. See, we can encounter God in just those interactions, those observations. My friends, we encounter God here in the gift of community, in being together. We encounter him in the sacred scriptures. We encounter him in the beautiful ritual where simple elements of bread and wine are blessed and consecrated to become the body and blood of Christ, to be shared with us where we receive him in a way, in the most intimate of ways, to be able to have a deeper relationship with him. And our encounters with God may not always be so transforming that our lives are totally changed because perhaps we hold back. But every moment we spend with him can be a moment of great grace. To be able to realize he's looking for us, we need to be looking for him. To realize that he's falling in love with us, are we falling in love with him? To realize that we can find God. And sometimes that's very hard because we may feel alone, abandoned, and wondering where he is in the midst of whatever challenges we are facing. I assure you, he's never far behind. He's never far away. He's very near to us. You see, Jesus walks in front of us so that we can follow him. Jesus walks beside us so he can accompany us on this journey through life. And guess what? Jesus walks behind us sometimes too, to help pick up the pieces of things we ourselves leave behind. Today, think of how you will encounter God in these next hours, in the next day, this next week, the next month. Remember what St. Augustine said, "To seek God is the greatest human adventure. To fall in love with God, the greatest romance, and to find him, the greatest human achievement." My prayer for you today is truly that you will seek him, that you will fall in love with him, and certainly, and I know, that we will all find him.